All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the box Chevy here. Um, One of the obscurities in doing this type of work is getting a car that don't need to be totally stripped. That's what I'm going to talk a little bit about. We've been working on this thing on and off all year, and I just took a notion and we started on it because I got a few days in between here of projects, and I got my wagon ready to go to other places to get worked on, so I'm kind of at a stopping point on it. So I want to have something to do, but we need to get, this is my grandpa's 89 Caprice. Now you say, well, it's a Caprice, it's got Impala taillights. That's right, we've converted it to an Impala taillights, Impala header panel, doing away with all the Caprice trim down the side, just have wheel well moldings and a rocker trim. So, but from here up, I had my blasting guy strip it when he was over here for another project. So from the top up, where it was all sun-baked and cracking, had it stripped to the metal. But from here down, the car was fine. And so I just had him go over it with like 220 wet sanding it. And done a pretty good job of, he did, help me out a lot and save some time. So, and basically all I had to do was come behind him. I fixed the dents, throwed some primer over the filler, and then I went ahead and put this SPI high build on the car. And this SPI high build's been on this car for the better part of the summer, into the fall. So everything, I was comfortable doing that because there was epoxy primer underneath. This is not necessarily waterproof primer. So Tamco 5310 is, SPI is not. Unless someone knows more about that than me. It's not a direct to metal material. 5310 can be. But you'll see the different materials here we got. We've got the original paint here that came back through as I was blocking the other day. And then you got a little epoxy here showing through. And then you've got the SPI primer. So basically what we want to do, well, you don't want to really paint over this rainbow here. You want to put a uniform coat down. So what I got to do is I got to get some of the PPG product I use for the epoxy, which is the black, but I'm going to get that in gray and use it as a sealer so it'll be uniform. And then we're just going to pick a modern color that's close to this gray, and like a shadow gray with some pearl in it. We're going to shoot the car. And I've got Tamco 4100 clear left over from other jobs. We're going to use that. So if it wasn't for the weather being cold, I could have this thing painted probably by Wednesday, but probably have to paint it toward the end of the week. But anyway, this is just one of those cars. You may see this where a car don't necessarily need to be stripped all the way, and it's okay. Very few are that way though. Most of the time it has to be stripped. But this is a good indication of what you can do when you get a car that the paint, what I call happy paint, it's not cracking or anything. And you can, you want to make sure you sand it well, but you can do your body work over it, prime over it, block it out, and if it comes back through the primer, that's fine. Now, I wouldn't recommend spraying modern base coat over this 30-year-old whatever they used in 1989. So you want to use a good, high-quality sealer. I prefer to use epoxy primer as a sealer, and that way the modern paint won't react with anything that's here, because there's also other things showing through. Factory primer right here, that's factory primer. You just don't know. That's the EDP coating. See, these cars were put down in a vat and soaked, and then flooded with and electrically charged, and stuff. Way more modern way of building a car than they were back in the 70s. So far as and they were a lot more automation by here than, but it was also the materials. Now the materials they used in this year model was pretty crappy. They had a problem with the paint in the 80s. Some had to actually take the cars back, I heard, and get them fixed right after they were new, because they were not doing right. And you'll see that evidence on these cars. The paint just don't hold up on the roof, trunk, and the hood. Even cars that's low miles, you'll see the paint's just deteriorating. So that's why it goes back to saying this paint is, you know, it's been on here 30 years. Okay, it's fine, but put a good sealer over it to hold it down. That way it don't react or something crazy happen. It's always good to seal that stuff off. It didn't react to the 2K primer, but the 2K primer is not as strong as a base coat or the clear. So that stuff will lift stuff that you wouldn't think it would lift. So just be mindful of that, and I'll do a video on the car when it's painted, and just be kind of a little bit something different. I hadn't ever done a box Chevrolet. I did do a Buick. I don't know if I put that on the channel or not. A '83 LeSabre, a similar body style, same glass, roof, all that stuff. Another thing, I'm not a big fan of painting cars with stuff on them, but on these cars, we haven't really ever just figured a way to get this trim off without destroying it. So we're just going, with the type of paint job this is going to be, we're just leaving that on, taping it up. These you can get away with leaving the door handles on because there's no paint line. There'll be a paint line here, unfortunately, but that's just going to be the way it is. Same thing with these. I had him go ahead and change these out, and it took a week to change these out. But anyway, done it himself, and those are new. So I had him sand underneath so it wouldn't be a hard edge, and then put them on, and we'll tape them off to paint. Again, I'm not condoning painting around stuff, but sometimes, depending on the situation, that's what you got to do. You just take off what you can take off. And this is just going to be a driver. We're not looking for perfection here. But so anyway, with that being said, thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all next time. All right, so in the last little clip of this video, we talked about kind of what we was doing with this car. So what I wanted to show you here is what I'm having to do to paint it, because the weather decided to be winter this week, and last week it was, and while we were all out of town, it was decently warm. It's about 47, 48 degrees when I got down here. I started about 11 o'clock a.m. So here's what I did. This PPG primer is very easy to dry on its own. That's why you won't see me using SPI or any of that stuff for epoxy, because it takes 65 degrees, and according to them, for 24 hours to fully cure. So that's especially not going to work when you're using it as a sealer. So this is what we're using here, the EPX 904 gray with the activator. You'll see this used a lot here on the channel. And it's by far the best epoxy, universal epoxy for using it as a sealer and as a bare metal protection that I've used. Not saying the other epoxy like SPI may be better. It's just thicker and it does not dry as fast. So in this situation, this is what you want. Now, with it being in the 40s, it's not going to dry very well. So what I did, I have one of these heaters. I heated it up, got it to 80 degrees in here. That makes the molecules of all these parts, the body of the car, all that stuff, actually warm up. So once you get heat retained in the molecules of the steel, the plastic, whatever, it will retain that heat, even though that cools back off in here. As I, of course, always turn that heater off before you start spraying explosive paint. What I do is I spray without the fan running. And then once I get the coat applied, I turn the fan on high and let it suck out all the fumes, and then I immediately turn the heater on to warm it up in here, and that'll help the coats, help it dry faster in between coats. So with that being said, I want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing here, or what you need to do to if you're painting one of these cars from 77 to 90, you're gonna, I think these are called B bodies, any full-size GM car, Caprice, Impala, Bonneville, Parisienne, or whatever the thing's called, Buick Electra, LeSabre, they all had the same glass, same windshield, same roof, and they all had this goofy trim that ran right along here. And again, we didn't even attempt to try to take that off. So unless you're doing a show quality paint job, just do a good tape job around it, and you'll be fine. I also had my grandpa go ahead and take, we talked about this earlier in the video, but go ahead and put these on new. Just scuffed and sanded under them so there wouldn't be a paint line, and now I've done a good job of taping them off, so I think it'll be fine. Would I rather paint the car with these off? Sure, but this particular scenario of doing this car doesn't allow it. He actually drives this car a lot, so we're trying to get it. He actually drove it all summer with it in 2K, and then I seen about a week here I wouldn't have nothing to do, so I jumped on it. I said, let's finish it. So 2 days we had it wet sanded, and then we had it got it taped up, and now here we are. So we've got the first step done. I think I'm gonna hit the sides. There's a few light spots on the sides that I need to make more uniform, and then we're gonna hit it with some base coat, which is a 2000, and we're using an Imperium base coat from Palmetto Paint here in Anderson, which is the which is basically Finish Master Reborn. It's a new company that started. It's a mom and pop company that sells all the main paint products. So out of convenience and cost and the big discount they give me, we're going to use the base coat from them this time. You'll notice a lot of the base coats I use are either from SPI or Tamco. And in the future, you'll be seeing me using a new product that Tammy has started called Orion. And that is her new company. She left Tamco, and I'll actually need to do a video and explain a little bit about that later. Try to keep it as, don't go get too involved with what I know happened, but just kind of explain what happened, and that there'll be a new company, should be on the market very, very soon, with some of the same quality. So we're going to have I've got a real good selection of materials that I can use for a very affordable price. And like I said, with my discount that they give me at the local supply store, that gallon of base coat was a little over $200. It's a 2021 Chrysler gray with a lot of pearl in it. Another thing I wanted to briefly mention is these header panels. Make sure you have them loose, have them set out from the body. I think I've drilled about this in the past, but just don't hurt to be reminded. Of course, pop all your window moldings off. These door handles, you can do a real good job of taping around them because they're not laying up against the car. I would rather have these off, but again, this is a daily driver type car. This is not a show car. So, just some things you do. I just went ahead. We forgot that we had kind of messed this lock up with sandpaper, Pop did, so I just said, screw it, I'll just paint over it. So, again, you won't see that happen on other stuff that I work on. So, that's kind of where we're at. Again, these are loose, and so we wanted to make sure we got plenty of overspray in the underneath. That'll give Pop something to do, to cover up all my overspray. So always make sure you leave your grandpa plenty of overspray to cover up with spray bomb paint. And yeah, so otherwise, we'll see you in the next clip. All right, picking up here where we left off, we got 1.5 coats of the bookstore base coat on. I call it the bookstore paint because it's actually Nova. It looks like Barnes and Noble, but anyway. Surprisingly, I got the shop really hot, and I started, and the first coat dried really fast, so I was able to start the second coat. The sun has just came out, finally, and when I started, it was still 47 or 48 degrees. It felt colder, actually, than it did this morning. But I decided to try something. Instead of heating the shop back up before the second coat, I simply started the second coat because the first coat was already completely dry. And just with airflow across this panel, with a medium reducer, it's dry. Everywhere I've sprayed the second coat already is dry. Now, you know, you're supposed to wait so long in between coats, and I understand that, but it's dry to the touch. So I thought that was interesting, that maybe the curing of paint doesn't always relate to just temperature, but it also has a lot to do with the airflow. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about painting something. Sometimes you can go ahead and get away with it, but I still recommend a heater to heat up your paint, your gun, get the metal hot, warm, get the molecules warm like I discussed before, and I think that goes a long way. I think I'm going to attempt to spray these sides. I'm going to let the fumes evacuate, and then I'm going to heat it back up in here because the temperature is starting to drop. I can tell the temperature is getting pretty chilly in here again. So that's definitely going to hinder the drying, and I want to get the base coat done today, so I don't want to have to wait an hour and a half in between coats. And again, I'm only using a medium reducer. But it's coming along. I think this color is going to be spot on for this car, and we'll see you in the next clip. Okay, so we've got a painted car. What I wanted to kind of show you, a little bit demonstrate, is how I do pearl coat. I'm not scared of spraying metallics or pearls. I would rather honestly spray that than spray a solid color. I guess because I started out, cut my teeth, my first paint job I ever did on an all over, that I actually sprayed the car. I did body work for a long time, but I would always get my friend to spray, because I was scared to paint the car. But my first car I ever painted all over entirety was, I painted 2 in 1 week. I painted that blue 72 Monte Carlo that I sold at Street Side Classics. And I painted my uncle's 80 Malibu the very next day. And both of those were metallic colors, and I didn't have any trouble. Now, the reason people get themselves in trouble when they spray metallics, and I'm going to use this clear coat gun here for demonstration, but I do not use, under any circumstance, a 1.3 tip to spray metallic. I use a 1.5, and I'll show you the gun I use. It's a Spray Source TSS. Just put it up actually, but here it is. It's a Spray Source. I use a 1.5 tip. Me personally, I like to see some depth and definition to my metallic. I like it to almost look like the metallic is raised up off the panel when the sun hits it. So what I do is I put medium coats. I start with medium coats. I put about 3 medium coats. I make sure I hold the gun about right here. Have the fan wide and move slow. I use a HVLP on metallic. There's no reason to waste a bunch of paint using a high pressure. And I've talked about this before. The slickest clear I've ever seen was sprayed with like 50, 60 PSI on my grandpa's car. It looked dull as it could be, but it sanded out so easy. So that ideally, that's like the best clear situation, but you waste a ton. So you don't want to do that, in my opinion. You don't want to do that metallic, so you want to use something that ain't gonna waste. So I use a HVLP for my metallic or my solid coats. And I just started trying to use a HTE for clear. I'm gonna see how this goes. I bought one of these Harbor Freight jobs just to see. I just can't spend $700, $800, $900 on a paint gun. I don't paint every day. I just don't see it. With the high solids clear we got that I use, it's gonna orange peel anyway. And these cars that I normally do need to be flat. Now, with that being said, it'd be nice to be able to paint this car and it turn out like a car on the showroom floor. Some are a good bit of orange peel, but still look pretty good. So I'm gonna try to maybe put a little extra reducer in this car here and see if I can't get the paint to lay out a little better. If I get a run, oh well. With this cooler temperature, I think the paint might flow out a little better anyway. But what I was gonna demonstrate on this metallic was basically 3 medium coats, 1.5 gun, and then usually on the 4th coat, I do a backwards coat. I go the opposite way, and you're saying, what in the world are you doing? Well, it works for me. Like, always paint the same direction. No. when you're painting metallic, at least this is the way I've found to do it, I always like to spray a backwards coat. That adds random to the metallic build. Then, a lot of times I'll make sure I have plenty of paint left over, and then I just go crazy like a maniac with the gun, just all over the car. I hold the gun way up here and start fanning it out. And I'll fan it out a couple times. This car I fanned it out in places, well, all over the car about 3 times. This color's got a lot of pearl in it, so I want to make sure I give that pearl. Plus, when you fan it out like that, that lets the pearls kind of land on top of the surface. So when you end up, what you end up with is the metallic ends up giving it gives it that rocky look. And some people might not like that. I like to see the metallic look like it's standing up under the clear, and it gives it good. I might be doing this totally wrong, but it works for me. And this is that's the way I like to do it, because that's the way I like my metallic finish to turn out. You may want your metallic finish to look just smooth as it can be underneath. That's just not my style. I like that pop. I like that glitter. If it's got pearl in it, I want to see that glitter, and that fan coat really helps with that. It also helps with tiger striping. And that 1.5 tip lets the pearl really, really flow out also. So you also, again, very important, paint the car all together. This piece painting stuff just don't work. Sorry, it don't work. I see $50,000, $60,000 cars all the time at car shows, and the paint don't match. So there's a lot of people out there with big egos, and they don't know what they're doing. So, but anyway, that's what I do. So here we are. This is what we got. 2021 Chrysler. I can't remember the name of the color. It's heck, it don't even have the name of the color on here. Darn. Baltic. I'm sorry. Yeah, it does. Baltic gray. I don't know if that's a code or not. JP21 WAS Baltic gray. So anyway, good choice here. This would also look good on a first generation Monte Carlo, especially with a black metal top. But anyway, we got it ready for clear. So I hope you've enjoyed this video so far. I'll do more installment of the car cleared. And depending on my, when I produce the video on Power Director on my phone, I may do a follow-up in the future with it all put back together. He's got to have, we're waiting on the bumper filler. We're waiting on and we got to have new bumpers. So it's going to be a little while before the car is done. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it this far, and I just wanted to kind of document this and be a little change from what I've been doing, going gallivanting at these car shows. But anyway, thanks for watching this far, and we'll see you in the next installment. All right, so we got one coat, a Tamco 4100. It's a 4-to-1 mix. It's reduced to, I want to say I reduced it a good 10%, maybe 15%. With medium reducer. I'm using slow hardener, unfortunately, but it's all I had. It's 45 degrees when I started, and it's 48 degrees now. So again, I heated up the shop, heated up the clear, heated up the gun. But I started the first coat, and it's just like a cloud in here. So I had to turn the fan on to suck all the fumes out. But amazingly, here in the 40, we got 48 degree air coming across this car. And I'm going to touch this in an inconspicuous area, but it's tacked up, and I think it's ready for another coat already. I did not put any polar accelerator in it. So as the fumes are evacuated, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to fire the heater up again and let it warm up on this clear in between coats. I'm using a HTE high transfer efficiency gun from Harbor Freight. Figured I'd give this is kind of some newer technology, HTE. HVLP's been around for years now. If you're looking for a comparison, I had 2 mixed quarts, and it seemed to waste less because I've still got a half a quart left and some in the gun, using about the same gun settings as I would have been using with the HVLP. So yeah, so I'm going to say it does save a little material over the HVLP. So think about that. There's a lot more expensive guns like that out there. Right now, I'm pretty happy with how the paint's laying out. If I can get this thing to lay out, it's the orange peeled, I know, but if I can get it to lay out halfway decent, then most of the car won't even be cut. Again, this is a daily driver. This is not a show car. But even if we do cut it some, it's going to be cut spring of the year when the paint's good and cured. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at right now. I just wanted to document this to show you that it's, I don't have a thermometer in the shop here, but it's 48 degrees going by my phone. And a good chance where I live it's colder than in town because there's way less asphalt and concrete to soak up the sun rays. So probably gonna say it's about 46, 47 right now. And we got this cold air coming across this clear, but it's drying. So I don't know what else to say about that, but you know, if it works, it works. So don't be afraid to try it. Sometimes I live in a colder climate here. I mean, it's a warm climate, South Carolina, but we get cold here in the upstate. So, and when it rains and stuff, it stays cold. A lot of times, like today, it's not gonna hardly get out to 40. So it's either wait around and hope you get a better day or just send it. So I'm sending it.